Welcome one and welcome all to the first video in the Minnesota Fishing 2025. We'll kick it off here. This is going to be photos mostly, guys, and we'll kick it off here with the first sunset of the first day. Okay, so this is the first actual fishing day. It looks like a wonderful day. If you look in the background of the photo, there's no movement on the water. It's great, sunny skies, but just around the corner where we actually started and had been fishing for about 3 to 4 hours, the wind is ripping. So on this day, I'm fishing with friend Scott and brother Fran, and we'd found a couple of fish doing a edge of the weed bed, weightless bait type deal, but they were all just not very big fish, and I was getting a bit tired of it because I know there's big fish in this lake, and decided to go to flipping a little craw on a light sinker. We were moving down the bank. I'd caught a couple of smaller fish, and then we got to this point here, which is a weed bed that extends way off the bank, probably a good 60 or 70 feet, and we had decided that we were going to pack it up and go home and have a cold drink. Flipped it into a hole just on the edge of the weed bed, and wabam, probably my biggest largemouth for the trip. It's around between 5 and 5.5 pounds. Right, moving right along. This little fella was my first smallmouth for the trip. Caught on the edge of a weed bed, funnily enough, again on a weightless bait. Not an impressive fish at all, but my first smallie of the trip, and I always take a picture of the first and last fish of the trip. Right on, moving along. So I mentioned in the first 2025 fishing video that we wanted to try some new things. So first up to bat here is Fran. This is his first fish of the trip. It's about a 3-pound smallie, and he caught this on a new bait to us, probably not to a lot of other guys, which was a megabass sleeper craw in like a green pumpkin color. And we were having a super tough morning, so he picked up the sleeper craw and said he's going to try it, and that was the end of that. Wabam, his first smallie of the trip. Okay, so for those of you that are not aware, one of the primary food sources on Mille Lacs, which is where the series of photos is from, is crawdads. And this little fella decided that he would actually attack the sleeper craw that Fran was throwing, and so Julie got hauled into the boat. Quick photo, bit of love, and sent on his way. Righto. This giant fish, if you guys watched the previous video, is the first ever fish that I have caught specifically using live scope or forward facing sonar. So if you watch the previous video, you'll hear my full explanation of how it happened. He's a tiny little dude, probably under a pound, but I'm super proud of him, so we had to take a photo. This beautiful largemouth could be Fran's biggest largie of the trip. This was caught on another lake, probably about half an hour or so away from Fran's cabin at Mille Lacs. Beautiful early morning largie, I would say somewhere between 3 and 4 pounds. This one was probably also caught on a weightless bait. He's a happy man, look at that smile. And back to Mille Lacs we go. If you look in the background, you'll see the waves. Bumpy as usual. And this is Fran's biggest smallie of the trip, I think. It's about between 4 and 4.5 pounds. And if I remember correctly, I think this guy was also caught on the megabass sleeper craw as well in green pumpkin color. The smile there is a rueful one because we were sucking it up like we did most of the time on Mille Lacs, and he finally managed to trick a nice fish and get it into the boat. It was really tough on Mille Lacs, guys, but look how beautiful those brown bass are. And then not too much later, probably about an hour and a half later in the day and a few miles further away, it was my chance. And that's my biggest smallie of the trip, I think. It's between 3.5 and 4 pounds, somewhere around there. Just as a side note, Fran bought 2 beautiful bubba scales for us to weigh our fish on. And between leaving batteries behind and leaving the scale behind, I think that we managed to weigh 3 fish on it for the entire trip. Guys, I just want you to take note of the difference in color of that bass, smallies in particular, can be on the same lake. This fish is probably 3 miles away from where we caught the other one, and if I remember correctly, this one was caught on a super fluke. This particular photo is much more of a if you know type scenario. This normally happens way earlier on the trips for us, but that's just a fun photo showing a little bit of bass thumb. We're starting to get it now. We're starting to find some fish, and our thumbs are getting a little raw. Okay, moving on, another small lake, about half an hour, 35 minutes away from Fran's cabin, and probably my second biggest smallie of the trip. This is between 3 and 4 pounds somewhere. This guy was actually caught very early in the morning. If you look behind me on the left hand side, you will see it's quite foggy, and I think I got this one on the popper. So a nice topwater bite, probably on the edge of some weeds or around a dock, and probably a look away cast as well, like I normally do when fish aren't biting well. Pop, pop, bang. Beautiful brown bass. Right, these next 2 pictures. The weather was horrific around the cabin at Mille Lacs, so we decided to go and explore some brand new water. And this is Fran absolutely thrashing me. And this first one is between 4 and 5 pounds. And I think that was caught on a weightless bait as well. Beautiful dark fish. It's been shallow for a long time. And then just to rub some salt into the wounds, not too much longer later, wabam, take that. Another 4 to 5 pound fish. And I think at this point, Fran is about 10 pounds up on me. Thanks, brother. And then, not to be outdone, and just because I had to be awkward, I managed to whack this smallie of about 3 pounds. I think this one was caught on a crankbait, so I can't catch the largies on the day, but I'll catch a smallie. And then if you watch the previous video, you'll recall that I mentioned that we got the one day we only managed to fish for 2 hours before getting thrashed by a storm. If you look in the background, you can actually see that storm building. But I still managed to get somewhere between 3 and 3.5 pound largie, and that one would have been caught pitching, probably docks. So happy boy. This was on one of our favorite lakes that we like to fish. One of my favorite birds of all time, and on this particular day at one point we had 5 of them wheeling overhead and screaming. It is majestic. What a beautiful bird. On this particular day we were actually struggling and had caught very few fish, maybe 5 or 6 fish in 3 hours, and came upon a weed bed that was way out in the middle of nowhere, and started throwing a fluke on a split shot rig and managed to snag this beautiful fish. This fish was also again between I think 3.5 and 4.5 pounds, and you can see the smile. I was a happy boy that we finally worked something out. And once we got this fish, it got completely western. After this photo, there is no photo of it. We moved on to a point, and I think we caught 17 fish off one spot where the wind was blowing up against the back of a point. Absolutely slaughtered them. We probably got 17 fish in 25 minutes. It was absolutely fantastic. Okay, this next fish, guys, not a particularly big one, but you'll see I'm pointing at it. I do this on every trip. This was the last fish of the trip, this largie. And what you can't see that's going on in this photo is the wind had gone from 0 to about 35 miles an hour in 15 minutes. But I did not want to get off the water until I'd caught one last fish. So thanks, brother, for sticking it out with me. It took me about 10 minutes. Pitched my bait up under a dock. And wabam, thanks for coming. Last fish of the trip. What an awesome trip. So guys, this may seem a bit confusing to some of you. If you watch the previous video, it will make a lot more sense. It was a very trying trip weather-wise. We had some horrendous weather on this trip as far as wind and tornadoes and things like that goes. And there was points during this trip where we considered hooking the boat and actually going somewhere else. But we persevered and we worked a few things out, and we went to some new lakes and we managed to catch some nice fish. Now it might be a little bit confusing from that perspective, and I hope you will forgive me if you are confused, but it would be beneficial if you watched the previous video, then you would understand it a lot more. So this is the sun setting on the final day of the trip before I had to go home the next day, and just another beautiful sunset at Mille Lacs. And I would like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this montage. We caught a lot more fish in this. I think I mentioned in the previous video it was around the 250 number, but this is just some of the highlights of the trip. The next video is going to be the one that I promised you all about, learning to pitch and how to break down cover when you're pitching, so you can look forward to that. But I hope you just enjoyed this highlights of my trip of Fran and myself. I appreciate you all watching, and brother, I appreciate you and I love you, and thank you for this good trip. It was wonderful as usual. Thanks guys.